hey everyone. So this is, I actually forgot which episode this is right now. I believe it's 13 of Scripture Convos. And it's not Paul and Brian this week. Brian is out of town. And so this week it's Paul and Sam. And
hey guys.
Yeah, some of our students know who Sam is. He's come and has spoke to our students on a Wednesday night. He is an FCA representative for our area. And so he and I have been working together on trying to get FCA into the schools here and just work towards that and just developed a friendship. And so Sam said, yeah, man, I'd love to come and talk about the Word of God with you and do all this. So anyways, this week we're going to be in Acts chapter 16, and we're going to look at kind of a weird story as we've been continuing on in that. We're going to look at this story of a girl who's demon-possessed and can tell the future. And then Paul, one of the apostles and a believer in Jesus, and one of our more famous guys that we usually hear about. Anyways, he ends up healing her, and it causes some problems, and we'll read through that in a minute. But it made me think, we're going to be talking about this girl who can, we don't really see what she can do other than just that she predicts the future. But I thought it'd be really fun to play around with some questions from this trusty Magic 8-Ball. I don't actually know how trusty it really is.
When I think of the 8-Ball, I think of Toy Story, Woody asking the question and shaking it. When did the 8-Ball even come around? Do you?
Yeah, so I did a little research, and around 1950 is when it was created, according to Wikipedia, though. You know how trustworthy Wikipedia is.
Is Wikipedia trustworthy?
Well, that's a good question to ask.
Most likely.
Okay. There we go. Hey, we may be getting somewhere. So yeah, it came around 1950. Oddly enough, I didn't know it, but the guy who created it, his mom was a supposed clairvoyant.
Okay.
So, could see the future, predict it, that kind of stuff, read palms, whatever. And so that's how he got into this. Now, the 8-Ball part, I don't know where that really came into play, other than maybe, the 8-Ball is the winner, right, in pool. Yeah. I have no idea how that came about. But
that's interesting. It's relatively new, but still, like, in our terms of thing, I would have guessed it was around in the 90s, not the 50s.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So, or at least a version of it was in the 50s. Yeah. So maybe it was later on down the road they kind of turned it into this.
So if you don't know how an 8-Ball works is you supposedly ask it a question and you shake it, and there's a little die in here, a triangular die, and it will give you an answer. And some of them might be, you may rely on it, without a doubt, most likely, better not tell you now, try again later, yes, no, all these kind of different predictions, right?
Yeah.
And so we've got some questions that we're going to ask. So
yeah, let's just do this one. So with COVID and all of that, all the questions, all the questions that surround that, one of the key ones is, will school start on time? Is it gonna, and will it be maybe somewhat normal? I don't know. Let's see. Let's see what Magic 8-Ball says.
Will school start on time? Without a doubt.
Oh, all right. That may be good news or bad news.
Now, let's see if it's going to be normal or if it's going to be something else.
Okay, normal. Will school kind of be normal? It says, yes, definitely.
Hey,
that's good news. That's good news.
Normal school,
I don't know.
You heard it here first.
Okay.
What's our next question?
Let's do this one. So it's hot right now, and man, we always look forward to fall and winter when it starts getting hot like this. So the question is, will we get snow this year?
Okay, roll it.
Will we get snow this year? Oh, most likely.
Most likely. I love when it snows, and I'm sure Burke gets a little bit more snow than Henrietta. All right, so I'm actually going to go, since we're on the theme of snow, is Santa Claus real? Is Santa Claus real? Whack. Yes, definitely.
Boom. He was a real guy.
Yeah.
So, hey. All right, let's do a couple that are a little bit more personal here. Okay. So, let's do one. I'm going to ask the Magic 8-Ball if I should shave my beard.
Ooh, okay.
So, Magic 8-Ball, should I shave my beard? Outlook, not so good. I don't know what that means.
That means you're probably not going to shave it.
Okay, that is accurate.
You wanted to shave something. I'm not willing to shave my beard, but I would shave my eyebrow if the 8-Ball told me to. 8-Ball, should I shave my left eyebrow?
Ooh, real specific.
Don't count on it.
Oh, man, you got lucky on that one. Okay, so let's up the challenge a little bit. Okay.
Ooh, what you got here?
Let's pull in some Louisiana hot sauce.
Oh, yeah.
A couple of spoons here.
Oh, I like where this is going.
All right. Magic 8-Ball. Should Paul...
Hey, how about you do it for me and then I do it for you?
Okay, that works.
Yeah.
Okay, Magic 8 Ball. Should Sam eat some hot sauce? Better not tell you now. I think we got to redo
So we got to do that. But now I need to go and then you do it later.
Oh, I see.
Should Paul eat a spoonful of hot sauce? Signs point to yes. I think that's a yes.
Dang it!
So hot sauce.
I'll let you do the honors, man.
You hold your spoon. I don't even know how. Oh,
that's fine. We'll clean it up later.
we got some. All right, so that's a good spoonful.
Oh, bro.
Oh man,
bro.
And you got something to drink, right?
Yeah, I do.
Dude, how lucky is it that it didn't go on the carpet?
I know. Debbie's gonna be so excited that it didn't. All right, here we go. Woo!
I love it.
Ooh!
I wish y'all were here in person.
Ooh!
Does it hit?
Yeah! I just went straight to the back of the throat.
Do you like hot stuff?
Apparently
not.
When I get buffalo wings, I always get ranch with it.
Yeah, you
dip it to calm that stuff down.
All right, come on, get your pain out of the way. Think about my pain.
All right. Should Sam eat some hot sauce? You may rely on it.
That is a yes. You may rely on it. All right, so.
See, this is unfair because I think you eat a lot of hot sauce.
I love hot stuff. So
yeah.
if you've seen Hot Ones, there's a challenge where you eat hot wings. Going up. But let's be real. You really need some chicken with some hot sauce, but dink it and sink it.
Oh. See, that's unfair.
Love it.
That's unfair.
This isn't what I would consider hot sauce. This is what I'd consider like pepper.
Well, like now I'm good. Like it's just that initial shock.
Well, if you don't know how to put like if you're not prepared to put it in your throat right,
yeah.
you can hit it in the back of the throat like you did, and it makes it horrible.
Oh yeah, so, back of my throat is on fire right now. So, all right, last question for the Magic 8 Ball is Magic 8 Ball. Do you just randomly give answers? Yes.
Yes.
So there you go. Yeah. So just a little fun, as again we're gonna read about this girl. So I'm gonna read through the passage real quick just to get us kind of going, and then Sam and I are just gonna have some discussion over this. I'm gonna do the best I can. May have to go eat some ranch later. All right. So it says verse 16 of Acts chapter 16. It says once, as we were on our way to prayer, and this is Paul, Silas, and Luke, who is the writer of Acts. A slave girl met us who had a spirit by which she predicted the future. She made a large profit for her owners by fortune-telling. As she followed Paul and us, she cried out, "These men who are proclaiming to you the way of salvation are the servants of the Most High God." She did this for many days. Paul was greatly annoyed. Turning to the spirit, he said, "I command you in the name of Jesus Christ to come out of her." And it came out right away. When her owners realized that their hope of profit was gone, they seized Paul and Silas and dragged them into the marketplace to the authorities. Bringing them before the chief magistrates, they said, "These men are seriously disturbing our city. They are Jews and are promoting customs that are not legal for us as Romans to adopt or practice." The crowd joined in the attack against them, and the chief magistrate stripped off their clothes and ordered them to be beaten with rods. After they had severely flogged them, they threw them in jail, ordering the jailer to guard them carefully. Receiving such an order, he put them in the inner prison and secured their feet in the stocks.
Man, so just recapping, going over it again, I like to always recap and tell it a different way, is, man, you've got Paul, Silas, and Luke, and they're going to pray every single day, and there's this girl that just says, like, hey, these are guys who serve God and proclaim salvation. And the next day, they do it again. They say this girl's a slave, and so she's a prisoner of some sort being made for profit, and Paul gets a little annoyed by it and says, like, hey, I command you, Spirit, to leave this girl, to come out. And it happened that very hour. And the people who own the girl get mad because they've lost it. And so they've seen Paul, Silas, and Luke talk about Jesus all the time, but they've never done anything. But now they take them to the Romans, who then take them, put them in prison, beat them with rods, and they lock them up and they fasten their feet to stocks. So I imagine like chained to a wall type thing.
Like inner prison, like that's like the worst place you could go. Like this wasn't like, there's different kind of levels and different areas and stuff. But that inner place is, that's that's kind of reserved for those who are meant to be in not so not or nicer area, we'll say, of the prison. And so they got all that going on, and I did a little bit of study real quick on this whole why they claimed what they claimed with the Romans and all of that. And basically what it boiled down to was, if anything kind of disturbed the peace or whatever else, there were some things that Romans were not allowed to participate in, but for the most part, with that kind of law, it really wasn't followed unless it really was kind of disrupting peace, which was their primary thing. And so these men, I think, were basically manipulating the law, and were able to work it to their advantage for Paul and Silas to go to jail. And so,
the crazy thing about Roman law versus, like, when we think about law, we're like, man, they just get thrown in prison. Where's the trial? We're innocent until proven guilty. In Rome, you were guilty until proven innocent, and so you had to prove your innocence in there, which is kind of hard to do sometimes. It's like, hey, like, I didn't do this. Like, I know they're accusing me of doing this. Like, I didn't do it. And they also, like, beating was something that was just common. Like, when you see this beat with rods, like, sometimes when you broke the law, you just got whipped a few times and you got let go. So crazily different than what we are expecting.
Absolutely. So this kind of sets up the scene and what's going on. And so what we want to do is just kind of discuss some of the spiritual points and things that are coming out of this. And so in those first few verses 16 through kind of 18, what we see here is this exploitation of this young lady. Well, we assume young lady, but this slave girl. And so, she is able to predict the future. Let's be very honest, she's in an unhealthy and even harmful place when she's possessed. Now, we could get into the discussion of possession and mental health and things like that. That's not for this. We'll just say that I do agree that there are mental health issues. I also agree there are very deep spiritual issues that can be related to possession. Sometimes they can even be related to each other. However, regardless of that conversation, the main issue out of this that I see is that these men are gaining profit out of her misery, right? Because it's not, she's a slave and she is possessed and has this going on.
Yeah, because I think if you just even change that one little section, whatever she does for profit, she would still be a slave and still be in this situation. And
Correct.
So I agree with you. I don't think that's the emphasis of this focus. I think it's more that she's a slave in there.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And so one of the first things I kind of walked away with in this is just how when we allow sin, whether we'll say if prior to knowing Jesus as Christ, when sin rules in our lives, or even after Jesus, and maybe we get caught up in some sin and it's kind of running its course in us, when that happens, it can lead us to places where we can exploit others, we can abuse them, and especially those who are in weak and powerless places. And this is what's going on here. Sam, how do we kind of see this today? Like, how does that relate today?
Yeah, so like you see this a lot of different ways, and so America, we have a lot of laws in place so that like some of this exploitation doesn't happen, but all across the world, like there are ways where people exploit it. And one that just came to my mind that we didn't even talk about before was just even in like countries like China, there's a child labor law to protect children from being exploited and used and worked as free labor, cheap labor, even fair wage labor that prevents them from being exploited. And so that's one way. One way when we specifically talk about like slavery is slavery still around today. One of the big ones is sex trafficking. And so if you don't know what this is where people kidnap young women and they take them to other countries and they're forced to have sex for profit, for money, but they don't ever see any of that. They are drugged up a lot of times, abused, and it's a horrible thing that happens all the time. But there's other examples. Do you got any that come to your mind when you think of examples? We talked about some others, but drawing
just stuff like that. I mean, there are just examples also of just being caught up in being enslaved to things as well. And tied to the sex slave industry is like things like pornography, stuff like that. I mean, it is designed to enslave you. It is designed to capture your mind and your heart to a place where you have to have this. And again, because it's tied to the industry you were talking about, I mean, a lot of these people are exploited. Their bodies are exploited, right? All these things are being used for gain of somebody else. And really what that means is we're taking somebody who was made in the image of God and bringing them to a place that they are less than, essentially, and abusing and using that person. I mean, this is some of the, if you will, some of the lowest of the low of things you can do in my mind,
No,
right?
I agree.
And hurting somebody and doing that, and we don't know necessarily that they were like physically abusing her, or
Yeah.
doing anything like that.
Well,
but
and even in the Bible terms, like when we see words like slave, and our mind comes into the terminology of that means someone is shackled, they're beaten every night. And most likely that is not the case with most slaves.
Correct.
Even if you look at the Egyptians had slaves, but they actually buried some of those slaves in the pyramids, or servants, whatever.
Yeah.
And they lived really good life. You look at even Daniel. Yeah, they were put in prison, but he, as a slave, was lifted to some of the highest positions.
Yeah.
Even in America, slavery horrible. No one would ever say it's a good thing, but there were many slaves who were treated really. It was horrible, but they were treated well. That not in our mind when we think of the beating and that stuff. And so we don't know how she was treated.
Sure.
But they made her money, so they probably treated her pretty good because she was a money making.
Yeah. And it's a manipulation of somebody.
Of someone.
Which, when you get down to it, any one of us can fall into that category.
Yeah.
If you want to really make this a more general and less specific thing, the manipulation of other people is a sinful act for your personal gain. Jesus himself said that we are to serve others, we are to love others, we are to put others before, and so what we see here, while we may not, we would not have somebody enslaved. We can still manipulate people in situations and stuff like that. And so one thing that when he says we ourselves can see ourselves as these men who are
It's not
walking
just
in
the
sin.
extreme cases.
Correct.
Like we were talking about the homeless person.
Yeah.
Sometimes, like, we see a homeless person, and our mind goes to, oh, it's their fault that they're homeless. That's a way of like seeing someone as less than the value that God has given them. And so that puts us in the situation of saying, like, hey, you're less than the value, and we might not be profiting off of them, but we're treating them differently.
Yes, absolutely. And again, we can tie that into the issues that are going on today, and racism, and the riots and the protests and all of those things that are taking place. All of that can be tied into elements of that, of this very thing that's going on. And so, so we kind of established that, and so here she is. And what's interesting by verse 17 is she is actually speaking truth. Right? She is saying, here's Paul and these men, and they're proclaiming to you the way of salvation, meaning they're proclaiming to you how to be saved, and they're servants of the Most High God. So, awesome, right? She's proclaiming truth, and yet it says Paul was greatly annoyed. I always picture that in my mind real quick, just thinking about that, like, they're going around doing their work. Here she is. These are servants of the Most High God, and maybe kind of in a mocking sense. I don't know. That's just me, putting myself into this, I guess.
Yeah.
But I just have this picture of Paul just finally like, almost like a parent with a kid, just like, okay, enough's enough, And so he turns to this spirit and he says, I command you in the name of Jesus Christ to come out of her. And like that, it happened. And so the question that came up in my mind is, why in the world would Paul be annoyed about this woman who's actually proclaiming truth about them?
Yeah.
I mean, some things that I thought of is perhaps they're doing work that they just don't want word out yet about what they're doing, right? It's just not time. Jesus kind of even did that in his own ministry for a while. The thing that really kind of made me think was more so, why would Paul want something associated with him, this woman walking around, whether mocking or not, but it's obvious she has something wrong with her. If people saw it as demon possession, why would you want something evil wrapping up in the truth of God? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like,
well, it's sort of like when the big celebrity's on stage and he's thanking people for his movie that portrayed this horrible way of life, and he goes, man, I want to give glory to my Savior Jesus Christ.
Yes.
Like, that's a little ironic, right?
Yeah. It doesn't make sense, And again, we can do the same thing. We can live profane lives and give lip service, right? We can say, I believe in Jesus, or I follow these things, or whatever else, but yet our lives never reflect it.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we kind of see here. Her life does not reflect anything that she's speaking. And when you really think about it, if she's saying these men proclaim to you the way of salvation. She needs salvation. So deeply needs salvation.
Yeah.
She needs to be saved from the physical, spiritual element of the demon itself, and then she just needs salvation in Christ. And so, at the same time, what a message, at least for Paul, to be able to even proclaim, to say, okay, yeah, you're right. Guess what?
Yeah.
Here's salvation,
Uh-huh.
right? And he pulls the profane, if you will, out of and away from this. And so,
Well, and I see,
Yeah, go ahead.
I see in here something is she has an obstacle before she can come to see who God is. There's a huge
good.
obstacle in
Yeah.
her way. One, she's a slave, right? And two, she's got a possession of this demon, right? It's got to come out of her. And what Paul does, and it doesn't tell us that this girl comes to know Jesus, that she changes her life. We don't get to see the future in what happens. Because that's not really the focus of the story. But what we do see is that Paul removes the barrier that she has now the chance to accept Jesus.
absolutely.
Man, what in our own life do we have barriers from following Jesus that we just need to remove? That just hit me as we were reading this.
Well, not even just that we need, but like we need God to remove. Like that's the
Oh, yeah,
thing,
God
right?
remove, not that we can't remove it.
Yeah. Because I mean, that's like that's the we say that a lot actually, and I'm not like trying to
No, it's good.
knock you on that, but it was just like
No, it's true.
I say that all the time, like, oh, I need this removed, but it's anything that relates to sin in the spiritual has to supernaturally be done through the power of Jesus and what He does in His work. And so,
too many times we're trying to dig the stuff out of our life, and wind and stuff is filling back up that hole with more dirt, and we go, God, like, what point am I going to give that over to you? That's really good, because it is the supernatural of like, hey, Jesus, we need Jesus to help us with this. That's good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And so, same thing, man. We can find ourselves enslaved to sin, just like this girl is, if you will, in evil, whatever, and even be wrapped up in this what is profane, thinking we're actually proclaiming the truth, but our lives don't reflect that, and so we need that change in our lives, and so we see that happen, and so. Here's the crazy thing is somebody could have that happen. I've seen this. I've had youth that they'll make changes in their lives, or they are changed, I should say, in their life by Christ. They go back and they're ready to tell other people or whatever else, and then they just get blasted for it.
Yeah.
Like, or it might be because they have somewhat of a past. It's like, well, that ain't true. You can't. Like a crazy example, not with youth, but Phil Robertson of the Duck Dynasty people. I don't know if you heard. Like, it was like a month ago now. He found out he had a long-lost daughter from an affair he had. So he was married to his wife, Miss Kay, and he said, I was not a believer, through a good part of that, and I had affairs, I did all of this. Like, he owns up to it, right? So this woman, somehow they find out she is one of Phil's kids. And so they welcome her into the family. A beautiful picture of grace in that. But people were blasting. Oh, here we go. Here's this Christian man. But again, he owned up to, like, I was that at one point. I didn't know Jesus. This was in my past, but this is who I am now.
Yeah.
Right? And so kids can kind of have that happen in them themselves, especially when they're going to school and stuff.
And this is so much of our culture right now, and I hate it, is that we want to dig up people's past to find the dirt to hold against someone.
Yeah.
Man, this is basically what these people are doing. Like, they're holding something against this girl, right?
Yeah.
And keep her in bondage. And so, like, if I could just find something against Paul, like, Paul, what did you do in high school that I can go dig up and I can hold against? And this is how Satan operates in all of our lives. Like, he wants to find that one little thing he can hold in front of you and say, look, you can't follow Jesus because you did this.
Yes.
That's not the story of Jesus. Jesus comes to take that away and bury it as far as possible from you, as far as the east is from the west. And like, maybe you've done something wrong, but like, don't let that be your defining moment. Oh, that's good.
Yeah, that is. That's. It's crazy to see all this as we're just digging and mining this stuff out of the scriptures, right? It's fun. But
it all comes back to, like, we have value as human.
Yeah.
Like, if one thing could disqualify us from becoming followers of Jesus, right? Like, I didn't know this story about Robertson, like, the Duck Dynasty legend, you know what I mean? If one thing could disqualify him, man, think about all the good he's done.
Yeah.
And like one thing from his past to be pulled up and disqualify him, it's heartbreaking.
Absolutely.
I think that's Satan's plan, is to try to do that, not God's plan.
Yeah, absolutely. And what we see in the continuation of the story is really that, I think. I think Satan is, we'll just say, is working behind the scenes.
The deception there.
And trying to create, more deception. And so we have a response of these men. They witness this miracle. The people who say they witness this miracle, and you would think they would respond with joy. They would respond with awe that this happened, and yet they respond because, well, as it says, that their hope of profit was gone. So one, we see where their hope truly was found, and where it was put. But instead, they take and they have Paul and Silas thrown into prison and beaten and all of that. And what I realized is that sin can blind us to the work of God, and even when it's boldly in front of us. And so we have to be careful. That's why you have to deal with sin. That's why you have to deal with this stuff and let God deal with that in our hearts. Because if not, man, there are just things that we can miss that God is doing and working. And I see this kind of wrapping up at the end of this,
Yeah.
What are some thoughts or some things you kind of see in this a little bit?
Man, we've got to be kingdom focused. We have to see the purpose, because it's easy for us to read this story and be like, oh, I'd never enslave a girl to gain money, or I'd never be a girl who claims people are Jesus, but really I've got nothing to do with God or talk about God. And you put yourself in these scenarios, you're like, oh, I'm the guy going to pray every day.
Yeah.
But like really, like, what if you do relate more to these owners, right? That saw that their hope was gone, and that could be, FCA. I got to bring an FCA reference, right? An athlete reference. Well, that could be like, man, I want to be the all-star on the sports team, but I'm not there, and someone else is, and so now I'm jealous about that person.
Yeah.
And I don't want them to succeed. I don't want them to gain, and my heart is bitter towards them because I'm missing out on my gain, my glory, my whatever. And if we don't see the big kingdom picture, we don't understand that, like, we all play a part, and that part looks different for every single one of us, and we might not get the job, the sports position, the X, Y, or Z, but if I get mad at you because you got it and I didn't, that's a heart check I've got to have.
Absolutely, that's good. And I think I want to say one thing to those who are believers, who maybe are experiencing, people coming down on them or whatever else because of their faith or whatever. And kind of what we see here wrapped up with Paul and Silas, right? Is they are beaten, they're thrown into jail. They did something, Paul did something miraculous as Jesus worked in and through him. They are proclaiming Christ. They're doing everything right.
Yeah. And everything's going wrong.
Everything seems to be going wrong, right?
Yeah.
And we can get easily discouraged in that, especially if you're a teenager and you're sharing your faith, you're trying to live it out daily in your home or in your school or wherever else it may be, where maybe it's not something that's accepted well. We can get so easily discouraged in that. And yet, I love verse 25. It says, about midnight, while Paul and Silas were still in jail, they were praying and singing hymns to God, and the prisoners were listening.
I just got goosebumps.
I know. Think about that, right? You just got beaten. You're in the innermost part of jail.
Yeah.
You could be easily just like, this is stupid. Why, God? Why would you let this happen when we just did something that you worked through us in this amazing way, and yet this is what happens. And yet instead, it goes back to the kingdom focus thing. Paul and Silas, because they were kingdom focused, said, "Okay, God, you got us in a new place. We're going to sing praises to you. We're going to pray to you."
Yeah.
And then they were given a voice to the prisoners that were there, and and the rest of the story basically is they witnessed to the prisoners there, and those prisoners and the guard will become saved.
So, and like, if they would have never gone through this, how would those prisoners been preached to? Right?
Yeah.
Like, how would they have heard the gospel? They're in prison.
Yeah.
And Roman prison is pretty, right? Like,
Yeah.
They're in prison, but because they were unjustly, right, thrown into prison, they glorify God in a way that puts them in the darkness so the light can shine.
Absolutely. Man. And so, again, if you're a believer who's discouraged or struggling with that very thing, all I would say to you is hold on to that. and see what God is doing in and through the situation to possibly bring about another example, another time for you to be able to speak about Christ, to share, to be that light in the darkness. So I don't know, is there anything else you want to share?
It goes back to the front. Man, they were going to a place of praying, right? Like, that's the reason why they were able to see this opportunity, have this opportunity, is because they were praying with God. They were focused on God's kingdom.
Yeah.
Kingdom-minded, baby.
Absolutely. That's awesome. That's good stuff. Anything else you want to share? I think that's
I
it
think
for
we
me.
hit it. I think we hit it really well.
Yeah.
And there's so much here in this story, and you could just take one of these verses and dive deep into it.
Absolutely.
You know, but this is some good stuff, and I've enjoyed our conversation today.
Thank you. Thanks for coming in and doing this, and I appreciate it. And so hope you will found benefit in this. This will lead you further into a deeper relationship with Christ. And man, if you've got any questions or anything like that, feel free to always put a comment on YouTube, Facebook, wherever you see this. And
like, share, copy link.
Yeah, all of that stuff. Hit up FCA.
Yeah.
So look up Sam.
I've seen some of you all at morning practice, and I'm loving it.
Yeah.
So looking forward to the year that's apparently going to be normal, right?
Hopefully. Yeah, we'll see. Yeah. So anyways, thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you guys next week.
Bye.